The crowd inside the America's Got Talent studio had no idea they were moments away from witnessing one of the most unforgettable performances in the show's history. When 17-year-old Marco Mackey de la Cruz, a soft-spoken high school student from Cebu, Philippines, stepped onto the stage, the judges smiled politely, expecting perhaps nerves, maybe a pop ballad, maybe something typical of a young singer. What they did not expect was a voice so rich, so textured, and so astonishingly reminiscent of the king of rock and roll himself that the entire room drew a collective breath. Wearing a simple white button-down, jeans, and the kind of bright, eager grin only a teenager far from home can carry, Mackey introduced himself modestly. He spoke about growing up in a small barangay where music floated everywhere, from karaoke machines to fiestas to long jeepney rides. He mentioned that his grandfather had been the first to play Elvis Presley songs for him, and that he fell in love with the soulful power and raw emotion behind them. The moment the music started, an acoustic version of Can't Help Falling in Love, something shifted. The studio noise faded. The audience leaned forward. And Simon Cowell, who had been casually reviewing notes only seconds before, looked up instantly with a sharp, intrigued expression. Mackey's first note was warm and steady, deep enough to echo Presley's unmistakable timbre but carrying its own youthful sincerity. It wasn't an impersonation, it was a tribute transformed into something heartfelt and unmistakably his. His phrasing was controlled, his vibrato gentle but present, and his emotional delivery so genuine that members of the audience were visibly moved. By the chorus, a hush had fallen. One usually reserved for the rare performers who manage to create a moment rather than just sing a song. Halfway through the performance, Simon leaned back, eyes narrowed in that signature look of astonishment he displays only when he knows he's witnessing so needing truly special. By the final note, held cleanly, beautifully, and with surprising maturity, the entire room erupted into applause. Some people rose to their feet before the judges even reacted. Simon was the first to speak. After a brief, dramatic pause, he told Mackey that his performance was unexpected, extraordinary, and one of the most sincere renditions of an Elvis classic ever heard on the AGT stage. He added that if Elvis could somehow hear the performance, he would absolutely be proud. Mackey covered his face in disbelief as the crowd continued cheering. The other judges echoed Simon's praise, noting the rare combination of vocal ability and emotional storytelling in someone so young. With 4 emphatic yes and cheers still echoing through the theater, Mackey walked off stage overwhelmed and teary-eyed, clutching the dream of representing not just himself but the thousands of young Filipino singers who grew up practicing in karaoke-filled homes. That night, a new star was born on the AGT stage, one with a voice that crossed oceans, honored a legend, and introduced the world to the incredible talent of a Cebuano teen destined for something big. The America's Got Talent stage has seen countless singers from around the world, but very few have managed to command it with the kind of electrifying presence displayed by 16-year-old Jackson Ramirez, a humble teen from Cebu whose voice unexpectedly transported the audience back to the golden era of rock and roll. What began as a quiet, almost timid entrance quickly evolved into a performance that people online are already calling one of the most astonishing Elvis-inspired moments in AGT history. Jackson walked onto the stage with the wide-eyed innocence of someone experiencing America for the first time. The judges smiled warmly as he introduced himself, noting his long journey from the Philippines and the fact that this was his first time performing for a crowd larger than his school auditorium. When Simon Cowell asked him why he chose Elvis, Jackson simply said, "My dad and I listen to him every night. It's our way of staying connected even when he works overseas." The honesty in his voice made the room fall silent. Then the music started, the unmistakable opening guitar of Suspicious Minds. The choice alone surprised everyone, an energetic, demanding classic that even seasoned tribute artists hesitate to tackle. Jackson closed his eyes, took a steadying breath, and delivered the first line with such smooth, velvety depth that several audience members gasped. It was Elvis-inspired, yes, but unmistakably Filipino in warmth, texture, and soul. Within seconds, the energy in the room shifted. The teen from Cebu didn't just sing, he owned the stage. He incorporated subtle hip movements, confident footwork, and a charisma that seemed to flow out of nowhere, as though the spirit of rock and roll itself had decided to guide him. His voice traveled effortlessly between powerful belting and soft, emotional phrasing, captivating even those who had heard the song 1,000 times before. Simon Cowell's expression said everything. His eyes widened, eyebrows lifted, and he leaned forward in the way he does only when a performer exceeds every expectation. Halfway through the performance, Heidi and Sophia were already smiling in disbelief, and Howie nudged Simon as if to say, "Are you seeing this?" By the final chorus, Jackson pushed his vocals to a soaring finish, hitting notes that were both raw and controlled, filled with a sincerity that made the audience rise to their feet before the last chord even ended. The studio burst into cheers, whistles, and applause. Simon stood up, a rare sight, and delivered a line that would soon spread across social media. "If Elvis were here, he'd be smiling. You didn't imitate him, you honored him. And you shocked all of us." With 4 enthusiastic yes, Jackson left the stage stunned, emotional, and clutching the Filipino flag someone in the audience hand. Ed him. It was clear to everyone watching, this Cebu teen wasn't just a contestant. He was a rising star, ready to bring his voice and his heritage to the world. America's Got Talent has always been a melting pot of stories and voices from all corners of the world, but nothing prepared the audience for the unforgettable moment when 15-year-old Leo Manlingat from Cebu stepped into the spotlight. With nothing but a simple denim jacket, a shy smile, and a dream far larger than the stage itself, the young Filipino singer delivered a performance that left the entire AGT studio buzzing with excitement and Simon Cowell visibly stunned. From the second Leo appeared, the judges were charmed by his politeness and soft-spoken voice. When asked what inspired him to audition, he explained that his grandfather, a devoted Elvis fan, used to play old vinyl records during family gatherings. "I grew up hearing Elvis," Leo said. "But I never imagined singing his songs on a stage like this." His humility only heightened the anticipation in the room. Then came the moment that would change his life. The band began playing the first notes of "It's Now or Never," a song known for its operatic flair and vocal difficulty. It was a bold choice for any singer, let alone a teenager. But from the very first line, delivered with a rich, golden tone far beyond his years, Leo commanded the room with astonishing presence. The audience fell silent, completely stunned by the depth and clarity of his voice. His phrasing carried both the nostalgic warmth of Elvis and the unique emotional touch of someone who understood the meaning behind every lyric. As he continued, Leo added delicate runs and heartfelt inflections that elevated the performance from a tribute to a reinvention. Simon Cowell, known for his notoriously high standards, slowly leaned back in his chair, arms folded, but his expression gave him away. His eyebrows rose. His eyes widened. He glanced at the other judges with a look that clearly said, "This kid is something special." Howie Mandel nodded, equally impressed, while Sofia Vergara covered her mouth in disbelief. Heidi Klum was the first to stand, followed moments later by the entire crowd. But Leo wasn't done. As the song built to its powerful final note, he closed his eyes and delivered a high, sustained finish that filled the entire studio, pure, strong, and emotionally gripping. When he opened his eyes again, the crowd exploded into cheers so loud that even Leo seemed overwhelmed, placing a hand over his heart while tears rimmed his eyes. Simon stood and clapped slowly, dramatically. When the room quieted, he gave Leo a comment destined to be replayed across the internet. "Elvis had soul, and you've got it too. He would be proud of what you just did." The judges gave him 4 emphatic yes, sending Leo straight into the next round and cementing his status as one of the season's breakout stars. As he walked backstage, wiping away tears, one thing was clear: this wasn't just a good performance, it was a moment that would be remembered long after the show ended. The America's Got Talent stage has produced moments of surprise, excitement, and even disbelief, but rarely all three at once. That changed when Miguel Migs Navarro, a 14-year-old student from Cebu, Philippines, stepped into the spotlight with a quiet demeanor and the look of someone who had spent far more time singing in front of a karaoke machine than a global audience. Yet by the end of his audition, he would leave the entire AGT studio roaring with applause and Simon Cowell shaking his head in stunned admiration. Migs introduced himself with a humble smile, speaking so softly that the judges had to lean forward just to hear him. He shared that he came from a small coastal town in Cebu, where his family ran a tiny eatery. Music, he explained, was what filled their home after long days of work. His father, an Elvis Presley superfan, would always turn up the radio when the King's classic played, and Miggs learned to mimic those deep, soulful vocals before he even understood the meaning of the lyrics. The judges weren't quite sure what to expect from the shy teen. Neither was the audience. But the moment the opening chords of The Wonder of You flowed through the speakers, Miggs transformed. He lowered the microphone slightly, took a calm breath, and delivered the first line with a voice so rich and unexpectedly mature that several audience members reacted with loud gasps. Gone was the timid teenager. In his place stood a young performer with the emotional intensity and vocal control that uncannily echoed Elvis himself. But what truly set Miggs apart was the tenderness in his tone, the warmth that revealed not imitation, but deep personal connection. He didn't just sing the lyrics, he lived them. And the judges felt it. Sofia Vergara leaned forward, eyes sparkling. Heidi Klum put a hand over her heart. Howie Mandel mouthed the word wow. But Simon Cowell's reaction was the most striking. He froze for a moment, then slowly broke into one of those rare, approving smiles that fans of the show know is never forced or exaggerated. Midway through the performance, Miggs added his own stylistic touches, gentle melodic shifts, well-placed vibrato, and a natural storytelling quality few singers his age possess. As he reached the final chorus, his voice swelled with emotion, filling the theater with a resonance that felt both nostalgic and breathtakingly original. When the last lingering note faded, the studio erupted. The audience leapt to their feet almost instantly, cheering, clapping, and shouting his name. Miggs, overwhelmed, covered his face as tears streamed down his cheeks. Simon stood up, slowly, deliberately, and delivered a line that would echo across social media. If Elvis were watching this right now, he'd be proud, not because you sound like him, but because you honored him with heart. That was extraordinary. With 4 unanimous yes, Miggs' walk,